Hey everybody, welcome to We Run on Reruns. I'm Amanda, and I'm here with my brother Eric.
How's it going, everybody? We are here getting close to the end of Stranger Things, where, if you remember correctly, we are now at the final episode of the first rollout that they did this last fall when they rolled out season 5.
Right.
This is season 5, episode 4, chapter 4, Sorcerer, where we get to our final conclusion of the first half, if you will, where they left us hanging with this at Thanksgiving. We had to wait all the way till, what was it, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
Christmas Day.
Christmas Day for the next 3. And then we got the final one on New Year's Eve. So, here we are, Sorcerer.
When I was watching this, at the end of the episode, I'm like, wait, what? This felt like the end obviously feels like a finale. Oh yeah, that's right, because it was the end of a block of episodes. So they really hit us with quite the moment at the end of this episode, and we're going to talk about it, and it's awesome. Love it. I'll just say up front, I got really emotional at the end of this episode. I'm like, yes, finally! Like, it just is such an amazing moment. It is just fantastic. It really, I think, gives the audience what we wanted right there, if I do say so myself. That's how I felt. It's like that's what we needed in that moment. So
all right,
we'll get into what that is exactly. I'm sure you guys have seen it if you're listening to this, but in case you haven't, we'll talk about it. As a reminder of where we left things off last week, we had the gang setting a trap for the Demogorgon at the Turnbow house when they learned that Vecna's next target is Derek. Henry was easing Holly's mind at the Creel house, assuring her that her parents would be joining her there soon. She's trying on dresses, making cakes, hanging out, having a great time. That's quickly going to shift. Then, after Holly ventured out into the woods following a mysterious map that was left in the mailbox, we found out that Max has actually been watching over her this whole time, waiting for that perfect moment to emerge. And that's where we left things off there. That was a good episode. I've really been enjoying this season. It's been great. I mean, I know we've talked about it gets some criticism here and there. Yeah. I mean, people are just going to criticize a final season, but overall, I mean, I really like this one.
I'll say this. I think there was not a lot of criticism of Stranger Things through this episode. I think a lot of people were really excited about where this was going, what was going to happen. It was more like, where are they going to go from here? What's going to happen? There were a lot of who's going to die questions. And that was kind of where it was left. It's after like the next bank of episodes that people got real upset about some things. And we can talk about those as we get through them. But I genuinely believe most of the outpouring of support or fan reaction, rather, was positive after the first 4.
No, that's a great point, Eric, because like now thinking about it, I think even the most criticism that I have for this final season are those 3 that came out on Christmas. And then I feel like it ends on a great note, but I think it's those 3 episodes where there were some things done. We'll get into it when we get there. But yeah, it was just either, it maybe fell a little bit into that, the bucket of Game of Thrones where things just rolled out really fast, right?
Maybe.
Or maybe went down and that was maybe part of it.
Or just took turns that people didn't really like, I think.
Hey, that's gonna happen. Or like focusing on different things where it's like, we only have so much time left, people. Like, let's get into like the meat of whatever plot line someone else wanted to focus on instead. So I think that's what I remember thinking a little bit of. But yeah, we'll talk about it.
Well, before I jump into how this episode starts, I just want to remind everybody out there, if you are listening, if you could please give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you find our short form content out on YouTube or Instagram or anywhere else, if you could please just go ahead and hit those like buttons and subscribe and share and just help us push this community farther a little bit at a time, one day at a time, one button click at a time. We're slowly getting there, and we really appreciate all of the support we've seen so far. So with that aside, let's jump into Stranger Things Season 5, Episode 4, Chapter 4, Sorcerer. And this opens with Joyce right in the camera, front and center, trying to calm down somebody, and it's not 100% clear who she's talking to at this moment until the camera flips and you realize she is talking to dipshit Derek, who is not exactly the nicest kid right now, and he is not having it. So he tries to explain to Joyce, hey, I know, like, this is what Mr. What's-It told me, like, it's fine, I'm in the know. And they're all now of the mindset of, well, we've now have to convince Derek that this is no longer a safe spot for Mr. What's-It. And so Joyce tries to tell Will's story. And of course, Derek knows him as Zombie Boy, which is a nice throwback to people who have watched the whole show. And we have this pleading for cooperating, to which Derek agrees. They let him out of his handcuffs, or his rope tie, rather, only for him to take off running for the door. And Will is the one that, like an action hero, chases him down and dives on him and tackles him to the ground. I want to pause here for a moment, because I have seen the behind the scenes with the actor who plays Derek talking about this, and Noah Schnapp, who plays Will, talking about this scene where Will had to flat out tackle him. And of course, he is much older than Derek, and Derek was like, no, it's fine, just go ahead, tackle me to the ground. And so they did it, and Derek said to Noah, like, I don't know Derek's real name, I'm sorry, I'm drawing blanks there, but he said to him, you know, thank you, Mr. Noah. This makes me feel like an action star.
Oh,
and so,
my gosh.
I can't watch that scene without thinking of that. Like, that Derek was so pumped to be, like, doing his own action stunts by Noah Schnapp tackling him to the ground in the barn, which is funny.
His character, Derek, is quite annoying and obnoxious, but any behind the scenes that I saw of him was really super endearing like that. And I have to say, I really became a big fan of this. Like, he wasn't in the Stranger Things universe for long, but I'm really glad that they included him in it. He added this like really unique flavor that wasn't there before.
Derek slots in with all of the other like one season characters that came into Stranger Things, killed it, and then that was it. They had that one run, and that was all that they ever had.
And what a great child star. Like, it's just always like amazes me when you have these like fantastic child actors. I don't know where they got all these kids from, but it's a lot of them from theater, really.
I think so.
Maybe he came from that world too. But Eric, I also want to say in this scene, I just found it incredible how quickly Joyce was like, oh, okay, you're not going to run away, we'll untie you. Like, immediately after he was screaming and flipping out, I'm like, guys, I think there's you might want to have used that sedation on him again.
There's still part of Joyce that knows that kidnapping children is bad. And wants to be kind and wants Derek to be on their side. Nevertheless, he shakes free eventually, and essentially, after some scrambling, gets up into the rafters of the barn, only for him to kick the ladder down. And as the group is yelling at him, and he is yelling some wild things back at the group, even for Robin to be like, Jesus, what is he saying? this is when Will goes into a trance, and he is now seeing through the eyes of the Demogorgon. And the Demogorgon is chasing down this barn. You see it break through the front doors of the barn, and you see Joyce head up to this Demogorgon with an axe and start swinging.
Joyce.
And this Demogorgon, who Will is watching through the Demogorgon's eyes, starts backing up slowly. And as Joyce is swinging at it and pushing it back slowly but surely, out of nowhere comes Steve in the car, barreling through the Demogorgon with the rest of the group, only for the Demogorgon. Now, this is the one with the tracker in it, mind you. Mm-hmm. Now goes over to a silo, rips open a door, and heads to the Upside Down, in which Steve brings up, well, wait a minute. Is the door like a peanut butter bopper? And it's like, wait, what? And so he's trying to make the argument that, like, it's got a hard shell, right? But once it's open, like, you can just push through it, right? And so they have this very quick debate as this door is slowly closing on whether or not Steve should drive through this now open gate so they can track the Demogorgon on the other side. Only for Nancy to be the final voice of reason to say, do it. And so Steve punches the gas. They race towards this door, and just as it is closing, it's wide enough so for that car to get through and push through all of the membranes, if you will, that are that upside down door, and it pops out onto the other side, and they are able to chase the Demogorgon through. Nevertheless, back in the barn, Will is starting to have visions of all of the different things that are now being seen. As this Demogorgon has now flipped, he's no longer in the eyes of the Demogorgon, he's in somewhere else, and he's seeing these children that are hooked up to these walls, very much like he was in the first episode, with these tentacles raining down into their mouths, and that is kind of where our open closes.
Yes. Yeah, really great opening moment. I mean, there was so much going on. You saw where everyone was at, and it just was a great intro. Love it. Love it. So good. I also loved seeing Joyce swinging that axe. That was
absolutely great. Like, you got everybody involved, and this is where, again, Stranger Things does a really good job, I feel like, of showing, not telling. Now, this season, they've done a little bit more of the telling and not showing, but they showcased all of these things that are going on all at once in this one chaotic scene, and it was great. I enjoyed this open a lot, and I think sometimes they have some pretty slow opens, and sometimes they are action-packed. This one kind of reminded me of the open where they immediately are fighting off the bats in the Upside Down. Like Steve is getting ripped apart, and it zooms in on that, and it's immediately into an action sequence.
Yes, exactly. I agree. Yeah, so good.
Well, now we've got our story broken into a number of different segments, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually follow Steve, Dustin, Jonathan, and Nancy here first. There isn't a lot of story to be told. So, Dustin and Steve are arguing in this car all of a sudden. Dustin is trying to track the Demogorgon. Steve is doing the driving. They're arguing with each other about who should be doing what, and how Steve's got to drive faster because the Demogorgon, while injured, is in fact going farther away. And as the two of them are yelling at each other, you can see out the windshield, it's very hazy, very cloudy, and yet Jonathan and Nancy from the back seat can see, hey, there's something out there. They yell to Steve. Steve tries to slam on the brakes, but they full crash into something. When they get out, the next time we see them, they are radioing in to Hopper with the radio that they have. So everybody's okay. We're just going to skip right over that. They're fine. And they are radioing into Hopper and telling them that they have crashed into a wall. just like we saw with Hopper and 11 in a previous episode. At which point, they're able to recognize that Hopper has seen this wall, but it's on the other side of town. And through their argument, Dustin and Steve in the car, there was a whole issue with frequency that they were able to like understand that Dustin was losing the signal because he was hearing some sort of interference. Well, Nancy is mad at Hopper. Jonathan is mad at Steve. Steve wants to move. Nancy is trying to figure out who's trying to take control of this situation. Steve there's a whole bunch of feelings being felt here because Hopper basically tells him, and we'll get into the Hopper side of this radio transaction in a little bit, but Hopper essentially tells to that group, hey, stay put, we're coming, we'll come get you. They're not coming, not right away.
Nope.
And the gang there is kind of split decision. Jonathan's like, why would we go anywhere? Steve wants to move. He wants to say, forget that. We can't just sit here and wait for Hopper to come save us. We've got to go do something and find something. Jonathan's asking questions like, what are we going to find? What's out there? Right? And Nancy is saying, listen, this is my call too. It's my sister who's in here. And she's trying to gain control of this situation between the two boys who are just mad at each other, probably just to be mad at each other, not really for their own decisions. But it is noteworthy that Jonathan wants to take the passive approach of hanging tight and waiting for Hopper. And Steve wants to take the aggressive approach of going and finding something. That fits both of their characters. Nancy, being a little bit more on the aggressive side herself, I think, wants to head out and find Holly on her own. Throughout this whole thing, Dustin is in the background doing some math. And Dustin has figured out that the frequency issues that they've heard are attached to the wall. So if this issue is here, and we know the wall is here, and we also know the wall is in this other place, and as Jonathan was on the headset earlier in our season, he was having frequency issues in this location. Well, now we've got three data points for where this wall is. And through his mathematician skills, Dustin is able to decide that the wall is actually a circle around Hawkins.
Right.
And what's most noteworthy is that the center of the circle, the exact center, is the lab, the Department of Energy, where they started this whole thing. And
coincidence?
Doesn't seem like it. And they all think that's too much of a coincidence as well. So they decide, okay, that's where we're headed. And that's really the end of this storyline. We don't see them again through this story. And there's a lot to be told here. Amanda, any reactions to this stuff?
Well, I just think it's kind of a miracle that they were okay after this car crash and that they could get out of the car because
they hit it going fast.
Wall was and that thing was solid. Like they couldn't cut through it or anything. So it just, they zoomed out and you could see the car was like just lodged into this wall now at this point. But the fact that they were able to like open the doors, get out, like it wasn't just crushed. Okay.
And part of that's part of that radio call was that they wanted 11 to come over and open the gate or like open the wall for them. And they're like, yeah, we tried that. Doesn't work. She can't do it.
No.
So that's not a thing, which changes, the game a little bit. So.
Yeah. I did like that Steve also commented that it smelled like Henderson's armpit.
He did say that.
I just appreciated that line from Steve. Yeah. It was a lot. I mean, I was a bit disappointed in the fact that Hopper and 11 wouldn't just go over to them in that moment, or that they couldn't all meet up. I just feel like, okay, you guys have realized that, busting into the military base might be suicidal. And even then, you're not going to first try to connect with your friends, help them out, and then figure it out from there. I mean, I don't know. It just felt Like, I guess they were just on a mission. They were locked in at that point, but I don't know. I don't know if you had any strong feelings about that, or if you felt like you would do the same in that moment. It just...
No, I will say that if I was in... If I'm in 11 or Hopper's shoes, I'm probably just going forward with what they're trying to do. Okay. Only because I know, like, you have to know what each of their characters is thinking and what they really want to do out of this. And both of them believe that Vecna is in that building. And they don't want to miss their chance on getting rid of Vecna. And so they want to take advantage of this while they can. So they are scripting out a plan, and we'll get to this here shortly. But that is their mindset. But what I would have had a bigger issue with was saying to Nancy and the group, "Oh, just hang tight, we'll be there." Like that's crazy, and that feels like the similar sort of stuff that they've always done in Stranger Things. Like the adults say, "Hey, you hang out, we'll come back and get you." When we have many seasons of this, the adults are second fiddle. The kids are the ones doing all of it. So why, after this many years, after all of this, all the crawls, Hopper still thinks he's got the right plan and that's it? I just don't know how that can possibly be. But let's talk about their story.
I'm glad that the others were there to nudge Jonathan along, because Jonathan, that was not the right call in my opinion, just chilling out there.
No, it was not.
No. So now we're going to talk about the Hopper and 11 at the military base situation here. And I'm kicking this off by getting into that scene with inside the military base. We find out that Major General K is wanting to use the kids as bait. So one of the soldiers that she has there is telling her that this is reckless. She's talking about 73 kids in Hawkins between the age of 9 and 10 and wanting to round them up similarly to how we see Henry Creel rounding up the kids, but they're wanting to do this as well. And really, this is to target 11 because that's her goal, is to get her hands on Elle. And so she knows that they are also trying to save these kids. They don't really know why, but they know that that's happening. So I guess they are aware of their attempt to grab Derek out of the house. We don't really see how they're aware of this, unless you picked up on that, Eric.
No.
But they are aware that they're out there. So we also see who I refer to as G.I. Joe guy, who had been captive by Elle and Hopper, leaving the school bus where they had him tied up. And Eric, did you see how he got free? Because he was chained up and then he was free.
No.
And I'm assuming they let him go.
I believe Hop and 11 got the information they needed out of him. And then they left. So the implication is that somehow he got out of this scenario. But there was no visual of this, at least that I can remember. Maybe I'm forgetting something.
But I know that their plan was never to kill him.
No, but I don't feel like they would have just freed him and said, "Okay, see ya." And gone different paths. That wouldn't have happened either.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Very strange. They did not show this though. But so I just find it weird. I don't know, no matter how much training you have, getting out of handcuffs that are tied, that are secured. Well, I don't know how that's going to happen. But
and so this is where we did have another scene in this episode, and I know we're breaking them down into different stories where they're talking, when the military's talking to Dr. K, in the military base. And one of the soldiers says he wants to go out and look for the fallen soldier. Do you remember this? And she says it's a waste of time. So the implication is he's not back yet. But there has to be, at some juncture, a reuniting of this. Unless this is not the same guy, but it sure does look like the same guy to me.
Oh, it's gotta be.
Right?
I mean, but there were several fallen soldiers, for what it's worth.
Also true. Yeah.
They took out a whole bunch of them. So I don't know who they're referring to. It's more than one. So I feel like they're talking about him though, because he was like the lead guy.
He was the leader.
He was
and I think they found like the bodies of the other people, but they haven't found him. And so he's out there. Right. And that is the thought process. So anyway, I don't know. There was no like clear, obvious, like, oh, he got out and this is how he got back there. At least not that what I can remember. Yeah. But there we go. Yeah. He's there.
Well, then we see Hop and 11 watching over the base, and their thought is, hey, let's break in, because 11 feels like Vecna is inside. And Hopper even says at this point, if he's in there, how could he have kidnapped Holly? Which I'm saying, Hopper, great question.
Good question.
I'm on the same page. Had that same question last week when we were talking about this whole idea from 11. I don't know why she's feeling so strongly about this idea. I don't know.
I think she's feeling strongly because she knows what the kryptonite feeling is. Now, she's felt it herself. And so there's a lot of it in this room. So if only one of those things could take down her, why would they have so many of them blasting through this door? It's got to be Vecna. And I get that, but I do also think
that's true.
Hopper is speaking for... Every now and then, Stranger Things does this, where Hopper is out loud asking the question that the fans have, saying, how could he be behind that door if he also kidnapped Holly? Now, we don't really know what's behind that door, and we don't know exactly how it would work at this point. So it's as good a guess as we've got, and we haven't seen Vecna, and they've done 30 crawls, and they haven't found him anywhere. So plausibly, he's already been captured.
Yeah, and I guess in my mind, though, it's like, well, they could be testing out that energy source for all sorts of reasons.
I
even
agree.
For just preparing to take out 11 or keeping other monsters at bay.
Yeah.
Like, it could be for all sorts of things.
It didn't have to be Vecna. And listen, we're all rewatching this. We know it's not.
Yeah.
But it's a plausible question, and it is a good time for Hopper to bring up that question. So even if you weren't thinking it, now you are, and going, now wait a minute, that does make sense. How would they have Vecna? How is he able to do all this stuff with Holly if he's behind this door? And it just puts that seed of doubt in there going, oh, maybe it's not.
Yeah, well, then 11 is doing the thunderclap countdown where she's like, see, every 7 seconds we get thunder, and they won't hear me when I land on the roof, when I do my 11 stuff on the other side of this. And I'm thinking also, Eric, is it guaranteed that the thunder is always going to stay at that rhythm? No, it's not. That is not how thunder works.
Well, okay. You're right. But
it could move.
You're not wrong. That's how thunder here works. But we're also like in this world of the upside down that to my best understanding has been a creation of sorts. And so as that's the thing, like things might not be as randomized in this world, and so things might have a little bit more standard flow to them.
Let's roll with that.
I mean,
like that.
I never thought that was too crazy. Like, because this is not Earth, this is the Upside Down, and things might operate differently. And so if it's thunder every 7 seconds, then it's thunder every 7 seconds. Like, I can make that disbelief.
Well, and for what it's worth, she doesn't follow her own countdown.
Learn how to count
during the second jump.
Learn how to count.
I'm like, 11. For the love of God, 11. Like, we do not see, I feel like, the best decision-making skills here from 11 in this episode. I don't know.
I think her decision-making skills throughout this season are questionable sometimes.
Yeah. So she makes a run for it, and the first one right on the thunderclap. So, like,
Perfect.
she lands on the roof. Perfect. Which, honestly, that would have been, I think, the worst.
That was the
timing.
biggest one.
If
that was the biggest one.
Yeah, like, if that was off, then all hell would have broken loose. So she landed right on time. Things worked out there. But then she does not count down correctly, lands on this other surface that alerts one of the soldiers in one of those, like, crow's nest. That's what they're called.
Lookout tower.
Lookout tower.
Crow's nest is really on a ship.
Oh, okay. And I was just going for it. I'm like, I think that's what that is. But
I can call it that. So same idea.
Yeah, sure. Lookout tower. But he sees her and she's like, sorry, bruh, and like snaps his neck. So yeah, he's down. And so
this is why it doesn't matter. Count to 6, count to 4. Who cares? Just snap all their necks afterwards. It doesn't matter.
So then we see 11 just casually letting Hopper then in through the gate. And Eric, this is where I ask myself, was that the only guard in the lookout tower? Like, was that it?
That was the only guard in that
strange.
lookout tower.
They were acting very casual walking in through this front gate. I felt like that was a little weird.
Hopper, this whole thing opened up with Hopper with like binoculars scoping in on the base, and I think they tried to identify the weak link and where this would be. Now, if you're going to tell me that there's this base in the Upside Down where they can open a door wide enough for a Humvee to drive through and no one else is going to hear it or know, that seems crazy.
Yeah, right.
But they could have had it weakly guarded. But still, you would think there would be some sort of sensor or alarm or something that would still go off, even though they're using key cards. People would hear, hey, that door's opening up, and it shouldn't.
Yeah, I was having kind of like Russian lab security vibes here, where it was like, okay, how much security or lack thereof security is in this base? Well, they're in. Now Hopper and 11 are in the lab where they're taking one of the technicians hostage. And they're trying to use his key card to get through. And the tech is like, guys, I can't get in there. I don't go in there. And then that's when 11's like, all right, plan B, and I'll just use my powers to open up the door, which, yeah, that makes sense. Not sure why that was plan B. They probably just should have gone with that from the jump, but hey, they were probably maybe trying to preserve the integrity of the door. That was my thought, so that, like, if someone else came in, it wouldn't be so obvious that it was just torn off its hinges by 11, but here we are. But as she's going to pry this door open with her powers, the alarm sounds. And that's when 11's kryptonite is in full effect. Mm-hmm. Because we did have this other scene, which I realized I jumped past, where G.I. Joe, who had escaped his imprisonment, we see him enter back into the base, and he's telling the others, take me to Dr. K, and he's warning her, like, listen, the girl is out, like, they're on their way, like, they're around, so they are present, and that is probably why we see then the alarm sounding and the kryptonite being put into effect. So, and then we have a moment.
We don't see, and this is the thing, we see him walking back in here, right?
Right.
And we know that there was a soldier that asked to go search for him. We never see how they got loose. So that's, I guess that is just probably maybe a deleted scene that got left on the cutting room floor. And that's that.
Yeah. Which honestly, this episode we didn't talk about. This one was about like an hour 20, I think. So still, I mean, not the longest episode, but not short either. So there's a lot going on here already. So we see then, Dr. K marching down the hall with her soldiers, and 11 is holding her hands to her ears as Dr. K then approaches her in that lab, and she says to her, "I've been looking for you for a very long time." And 11 knows who she is and who she's taken. She's making it almost sound like she does know, even though it's just her theory. So they're kind of speaking about two different things in this scene here.
Absolutely.
Because Dr. K then thinks, oh, she knows that she has someone, but 11 is just telling her, oh, I know you have Vecna, without saying Vecna, right? So it's interesting. Yeah. And that kind of continues on through this scene a little bit, this miscommunication. But she says,
which by the way,
is
really only a miscommunication on a rewatch.
Yes.
If you're watching this the first time, you don't recognize that they're not talking about the same thing. It looks like they are talking about the exact same thing. So it's very interesting writing, the way that they were able to weave that in. Because you don't know. You don't know who's behind the door. We all think we know.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yep. And 11 also says, I know that you and your men are all going to die. And that's when we see some soldiers also come into the lab, and they are shooting out one of these closets where Hopper had strategically placed that poor lab technician. And he was a trap in this closet. They're shooting out the doors because they saw someone standing in there, but then he falls out and they realize, oh yeah, that is not the guy that we were after. And they then, Hopper is from around the corner shooting out the other soldiers, except the one guy he does not hit is our friend G.I. Joe. So they are now getting in this like hand-to-hand combat, busting around the room. This kind of reminded me of the scene of Hopper and the Russian, who I was referring to as Russian Terminator, in that lab technician
absolutely
below the house. And they're just kind of like, it started out as a, one fight, then it's kind of they're switching weapons and it's gotten crazy. The whole room is getting busted up, but they finally bust into a room as they're fighting into this room where one of their monsters is being, I assume, tested on. And they are probably experimenting with these different like weapons that they have on it, right? To see how they can activate it, to see how they can weaken it. And that's
let's just call it research. They're doing research on all the different things that they're finding in the Upside Down, and they've got some tentacle looking things, and they're going to test out what they can and can't do.
So then we see Dr. K approaching as, we see Hopper continue to get strangled by this giant tentacle, and asking him, why would you risk Elle's life for the other? And that's where we have this continued miscommunication on, wait, the other? Like, what is this? Like, of course he would risk Elle's life to kill Vecna. So that's why it starts to like,
it's another really good choice of words though, because again, you don't know what, like if you are watching the show first time through and you don't know what's behind the door, it becomes a like obvious, like, well, of course I would. Like, you obviously don't know about Vecna is like the immediate response.
Right.
The secondary response though is, as was mentioned earlier, like Hopper has already asked himself how it could possibly be Vecna. And now we're getting again another clue to say, are you sure you know what's behind the door? And so it's kind of quickly becoming well, wait, what is behind this door? And you kind of get, if you're in tune with all the little details, you can see the breadcrumbs being laid. That's maybe we don't know what we're talking about just quite yet.
Right. Well, as we were talking about a second ago with this research lab area, because we see her flipping switches on and off. One is heat and the other is cold.
Yep.
And we find out that, well, the heat weakens it and the cold, that's where it thrives. So she is showing Hopper, I can quickly save you, turning this heat on, and it's going to let you go. Or I could turn the cold up and it's going to continue to strangle you. Well, guess what? She just blasts that cold right on this beast. And it is really like attacking Hopper even more at this point. And we see 11 approaching from the distance, but she can't use her power. She's doing the hand thrust. This is like on the schoolyard. That time, nothing's happening. And she has a knife on her.
Scissors.
Dr. K doesn't realize this. Scissors, thank you. So she takes those scissors and she jabs it right in Dr. K's side, and Hopper is able to turn up the heat by kicking that switch and escape this monster and pistol whip Dr. K. So now
straight up
it knocks her down.
And I will say, when 11 took the scissors and like jabbed him into Dr. K, I think it was her underarm that she got.
Oh, okay.
The idea, though, this is like the first time we've seen 11 do like physical violence to somebody. She does violence
without
all
her
the time.
powers.
Without her powers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She
right,
actually stabbed or punched or did something to somebody that was damaging.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're then finding this opening in the wall. I think it's through one of the vents, and Hopper is trying to give him give her his compass and saying, go find Nancy and the others. And she, but then as he's telling her to leave him, she's seeing this rip in his shirt, opening it and seeing the dynamite that is strapped to Hopper's chest. He's telling her, this is my fail-safe kid, like, no big deal, not going to actually use it, but, you know, if I need to, I will do whatever it takes to protect you. Yeah.
I'll just say this. First of all, this has been hinted at all the way through, as throughout this entire season so far, we've seen Hopper getting this vest out from behind a panel when no one else was looking. He's checking on something when no one else is looking. And so you know he's got a plan up his sleeve. You didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But again, to go into the mindset of Stranger Things fans, everybody coming into this season was saying, who's going to die? Who's going to survive? That was the question. And so it was just going to be, well, who's not going to make it? Someone's going to have to die here. There's no way they all make it out. And so they have done little things like earlier in this, 11, when they got through the gate, 11 turned to Hopper and thanked Hopper for teaching her and for trusting her. And now we've got this moment where Hopper is now going to go through this whole speech of how proud he is of Jane, and then he leaves her there, and you think these were the goodbye moments. These were all the goodbye moments that led up to this moment. Hopper's going to do it.
Yep, that is what they're playing with here. That's what they're insinuating and preparing you for. So he's closing himself behind the steel door and is approaching that final sealed door with the key card. He's having a memory of his daughter dying, as we've seen play out before. So, you know, he is just thinking, like, I'm going to do for Elle what I couldn't do for my own daughter. I'm going to save her. And then we see him go in. And we don't see what he's seeing in that moment. We flash away from this scene. But then when we return to it, well, first of all, we see 11. She hasn't gone anywhere. She did not use that compass. She did not leave. I don't think we ever thought that she was going to.
No.
But yeah, she's still sitting on the floor waiting for him. And Hopper comes out, and who is behind him? Well, 11. We see 11 approaching, looking in shock as Hopper is coming through that doorway. And as she's approaching, where also the camera is panning slowly in, well, we see harnessed to a machine, not Vecna, but Kali, number 8, her sister. So she's the one who's been in there this whole time. She's the one that they've been disarming with that kryptonite.
You know, I will say that upon watching this, if you go back in our podcast history, we had just watched like the Lost Sister episode before this whole thing. And I said something along the lines of, you know, Elle's leaving Kali here. It would be like the craziest ending to a show ever if this whole thing is just a figment of Eleven's imagination as Kali has whipped up this whole universe around her to create this.
Right.
And then it goes back at the very last moment to her sitting in the car with Kali and saying, no, I think I'll stay. And like she stays with Kali and they live out their days forever. That would be the funniest thing. And you were asking me, have you seen these episodes? And I was like, no.
Yes. Yes. It was crazy. The timing was nuts. We were rewatching and then approaching this episode. Oh my God. It was almost too much. I'm like, Eric, I swear, if this all plays out that way, that is going to be wild. And it almost could have.
It could have. It didn't. It didn't.
There, I'm like,
it didn't. But I was,
oh no,
hey,
oh no.
But like, genuinely, the callback on Kali is huge. And I will say this. The Kali episode is obviously one of the most hated episodes. And there's no reason to call back to your worst episode ever by a lot. Okay, there's no reason to do it. You don't have to do it.
They did her justice here, though. Yeah.
However, I feel like by bringing her back, it gives validity to that episode. And
so
obviously
true.
That episode was rated poorly long before this final season and Kali ever showing up again. But now I feel like that episode has a little bit of value to it now that we see her making a reappearance, because otherwise everyone's like, what the heck is the point of this? Why would we even need to know these people? Who cares? Well,
I know.
This is why. And of course, it was a long rollout, and I don't know that they had that game plan from the jump. Maybe they did, but it at least gives some credibility to that. I'm not saying it's the best move, but I can see the pathing for it.
I totally agree. No, I totally agree. And that's what I have to say. I feel like there were a lot of things that they closed the loop on in this series finale. And that's one of them where it's like, okay, let's actually add more value to that ridiculous episode and like give that meaning as to why that was so necessary for us to do it. Because without her coming back into this finale, that episode plays, there's no purpose there. So it's I appreciated it more. I agree for that reason.
Now let's pivot to a more isolated storyline here, the one with Holly and Max. As we left off of episode 3, Max had just made herself available to Holly, and we are left with a big question mark on, well, wait a minute. How is this a thing? How is Max here? We know she's connected to all these, machines and tubes in the hospital. And Lucas is like holding her hand and playing her music. And yet here she is talking to Holly. So how does this happen? Well, we get a whole backstory on it, basically. This whole storyline is kind of just interspersed throughout the entire episode, but throughout it, it's largely Max explaining a lot of what she's been up to and how this is a thing. So, first of all, she's asking Holly if she even knows who she is. And she said, yeah, you're Max Mayfield, the one who's always on the skateboard and always wears headphones. And she's like, yeah, okay, I've been in your house a bunch. You know who I am. Good. Like, and then she starts walking Holly back towards that big rock wall that
Yes.
the map had led Holly out to. And Holly's asking, well, hold on. How do I know that you're not the monster? How do I know you're not one of the monsters? Like, Henry is looking for me. And she said, listen, Henry's not looking for you. I wrote that note. And when she's trying to defend her because now Holly is thinking, well, Max has got to be one of the monsters. Now she just lured her all the way out here. She's trying to say things like, listen, no, I saved your family. I saved your brother. He wanted to have a hot orange mohawk when he went into high school, and I saved him from that. And Holly, I think, kind of can see the genuine reaction here and be like, okay, well, so Max takes Holly into the hideout, the cave, the cave area that she has turned into her home, essentially.
Yes.
And she is explaining that what she's been able to figure out is that this is a memory, that she's in a memory, that she is stuck here, and this whole world around us, while it looks nice, is in fact a prison. It's Henry's prison. And so she's explaining then to Holly, listen, he took me and I died, which opened the fourth gate, and I should be dead. And for a moment I was. But then something was calling to me, and then it shows Max in the rainbow room, which is really bizarre. Why would she be there?
Yes.
So she's in the room with all the children who have been killed all around. And of course, Max has no idea what the rainbow room is. And so she is kind of making her way through the room, through these doors, and finds a door that as she opens up, it is a door to Hawkins' past. And she is in a high school where she sees Joyce handing out flyers to a dance. And she refers to this other guy that walks by as Harrington, who is clearly Steve's dad. Even though we never meet Steve's parents. This has got to be Steve's dad. And I assume they just took Joe Keery and made him look, like this kind of through some CGI. So when she gets a look at one of the flyers, it says it's Hawkins 1959, and it has Henry Creel's name on it towards the bottom. And she realizes this is one of Henry's memories, which, if I can pause here for a moment, I don't know how you make the leap to all of a sudden know you're in a memory, but we're dealing with a guy who everything is with, mind control. And so maybe they're just aware that that's where she's at. I don't know. Thoughts?
I know. I think that that's the best you could. I mean, it is a leap, but I feel like what we learn is that Max is really in this place for quite some time. She gets lost and keeps having to reapproach these rooms over and over again. So it might have taken her a while to get to that point. But then after, it's like, okay, this is not my memory. And now this is in the past. Like, this is maybe, that flyer, I think, was how she put all of that together. Because otherwise I don't think that she would have necessarily got to that point.
Well, and it's as she's doing all this that then Holly is able to connect this to the book that she's been reading this whole time, The Wrinkle in Time. And I don't get the Wrinkle in Time reference. It has been a very long time since I've read that book. But she's able to connect it to someone who is trapped in another place that is essentially trying to figure out a way to get out. And This is where, Max is breaking down. Well, when you're in this spot, you have three options. You can either die. You can just be okay, and you're just going to deal with what you've been dealt.
Your fate.
Or you're going to try to escape. So I'm going to try to escape. And Holly says, sounds like the best option. And so we see this where she is getting turned around and lost, walking through all these memories, continuing to show up in the rainbow room and trying to find her way through. And she's discussing how it is this like long labyrinth of mazes that she would get confused in all the time until I heard Kate Bush. And she heard the music that Lucas was playing, and she's starting to explain to Holly the benefits of music, as we have learned, as that music always has a way of finding you. And she thought, maybe if I could follow it, it could lead me back home. And she ends up punching through a wall that she didn't think she was going to be able to punch through. And this led her through many terrible memories. And it felt like it would never end. And we're getting some highlights here of past memories that were horrible for Max. Before we get to the night that Vecna killed me, and she thought she found her way out. And she is able to see the house and climb the stairs and end up in that attic in the Creel house again. And she sees in the distance this like glowing orb of herself in a hospital bed with Lucas standing right next to her, and she starts to make her way to it, only for the Kate Bush music to hit stop and need to be rewound, which is such an 80s thing. I find that to be an amazing way to end this. Like, nope, sorry, had to rewind the tape. And so as soon as the music stops, this area for her to escape from is closed up, only for Henry to appear immediately behind Max, and she runs as far as she can, as fast as she can, and she ends up at this cave wall that they are at right now. And she says she'll never forget the face that Henry had that day. He was absolutely terrified. He will not come in here. I don't know why, but he won't do it. And so essentially she then stops and turns to Holly and says, like, I took door number 2. I just accepted my fate and I said, I'm staying here, and this is where I can survive, and it is what it is, until you showed up. And now door number 3 is a little bit more back open. And I can explain it to you, but right now, you've got to go back, and it's the only way. You have to go back to the house, and you've got to make it look like you never left, and you have to know that this is the situation that we're in. And Holly is like, absolutely not. I'm never going back there, until she kind of reasons with Max, or Max reasons with her and says, okay, tell me what I got to do. Because I think at some point, Holly even has to recognize, if this is the only way out, then I got to do what I got to do. Otherwise, I could be here forever too.
Exactly. Like that is the way to escape. Max has devised a plan as to how they're going to get out of there, but we
don't know what the plan is.
No,
but we do know that she's got to get Holly back. She can't just have Holly leave. Holly's got to still be there. And so I know there are some critics of some scenes with this as we go forward, but for the time being, with this whole Holly and Max thing, my only question is about the memory. But again, it makes sense what you're saying. She's been in there a long time. She probably was able to put it all together.
I think so. I had 2 thoughts on this scene. Well, the first was, where did all that stuff come from in the cave?
my assumption is that she's just like scavenged all this stuff from around. Like she's just found these things strewn throughout memories, and this is what she's using to like. Now I don't know how realistic that is.
Right, because there's a bunch of stuff.
She's got stuff. And she's got stuff. It wasn't all there.
I guess the one thing we know is that she can survive without. Because my other thought was, how is she eating?
Well,
but she doesn't need to eat because this isn't actually her body.
That is true. Like that's the thing. Like this is all a memory. You are not needing to do those things.
Her her actual body is being sustained at the hospital.
Correct.
So, and another just notable moment for me was that wall that Max had punched through. That was the same wall that through that point is where 11 had banished Henry.
Yes.
And where he became Vecna.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost like her getting, when she goes through that, then going through her worst nightmares is almost like what maybe Henry experienced on his own when he went through that wall. And so he, I don't know, put in that was sort of his memories as well, but they were Max's. I don't know. So it's it was a lot there. It's not like she was experiencing his bad memories. She was experiencing her own.
And they didn't show a lot of those, but it was interesting that while in his memories, she was able to find some of her own memories.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think there are some theoretical disconnects here. Depends on how deep you want to dive into all this. But I am okay understanding that on the basis of Max being stuck in his memories, she's got to find a way out. And leaving it at that, as simple as that is good for me. I'm sure there are other people who want to dive super deep into that. I will leave that alone. That probably goes above my pay grade. So,
Well, now we're going to talk about and finish up this recap with really a lot of the meat of this story, which is the Hawkins group, right? So we first kicked this off by being back at in Hawkins at the Miller's house. So, and Eric, I had to look this up. I'm like, Alan Miller, who is this? Well, he's Debbie Miller's dad, who Debbie Miller is one of Holly's very best friends. And so the military is just showing up there. And little Debbie Miller is just trying to watch Sword in the Stone on the TV. I was like,
great
that's
movie,
a great
by the way.
reference there.
Great movie.
Right? Yeah. We grew up watching that all the time,
Absolutely.
I feel like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's like that 1 minute you're watching Sword in the Stone, next minute you're taken away by the US military. So poor little Debbie. But we see Mike and Lucas are right outside. They've been scoping out this house because Debbie, I'm sure they've learned, was also on the list of targets for Vecna. So, we also see Joyce trying to reach Jonathan on the radio with no luck. And because remember, they're back in the barn. Will is also in the barn using this red paint, painting this massive image on the barn wall where there's all these curved lines that almost create what initially I was describing as a tunnel. But then they are describing it as spires, which is really like a rib cage like structure in the upside down. And that's where we see through Will's visions, all of the children are hooked up to those tentacles, just as Eric had said earlier, just as Will had been in the first season. So, he's describing, that Holly and the other kids, there's 3 other kids in his vision. Well, he's doing something to them there. He's not sure what yet, but he's got them hooked up. And they have to stop him before he takes more children. That's when Mike and Lucas show up all out of breath, telling them that Vecna is not the only one who wants these kids. And then we see the military has rounded up a bunch of these children. They're on these school buses heading into one of the military bases, and, we see Debbie, she's crying, and a woman on the bus who looks like maybe one of their teachers is telling them, hey guys, it's just like a school field trip. No worries. Like we're just going to hang out together in this bunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen.
Yeah.
I first of all, I don't understand why you even wrangled up the teacher. Like, you're not worried about the teacher. You're worried about the kids. Unless you're saying, hey, we need an adult here to watch over these kids. But you've got military adults in the room. It's weird. It didn't make a ton of sense to have the teacher be there. Now, is this the same teacher, though, that they cast because it was their former drama teacher? I think it is.
Oh, is that her?
I think so. It was Holly's teacher.
Oh my God. No, you're right. Well, because I think it is her.
So then that's why you put her there. It
totally is. Yeah. Well, and to me, I'm thinking, well, maybe they recruited her thinking she'll help, calm down the children.
That is the idea.
Kind of brainwash her into thinking this is for the best of the children. We're keeping them safe. Help us ease their mind by having your presence. That being said, I note in a little bit that these guys are being what I feel like is wildly aggressive toward these kids for really no reason. I'm like, I really don't know. They're kind of shoving them around, and I'm
that's
guys.
the thing. Not the first group, but when Derek shows up, for sure.
Yes. Okay. So, Erica is reporting back to the group where the soldiers are taking the kids. So she's on the lookout, walkie-talking back to the rest of the group. And Joyce also is busting out a map in the barn saying, hey, I know where all these tunnels are that runs right underneath the barracks. Okay, Joyce, this is interesting. So she has this whole map situation. Robin is bringing up a reference to The Great Escape. Tom, Dick, and Harry, and there's this whole just hilarious dialogue here where Robin is talking about, well, let's go with Dick. No, the tunnel that goes right under the washroom, better known as the bathroom, in case that was unclear.
Well, she says something along the lines of, well, I like Dick. Well, no, yeah. I don't even, but it's not, oh, you know what? Never mind. And it's just a whole
in a very thing. Robin fashion.
A very Robin fashion where she's caught in between selecting the mode that they should do and then trying to walk out. Wait, that's not the reference I was trying to make because I'm a lesbian. Oh, wait, I don't want to tell you that either. Hold on a second. And she's just caught in this world of can't say anything. It's kind of funny.
Starts and stops 6 different sentences before she can get out her point, which I can relate to this. So I do this myself. I'm sure you guys have heard it a number of times here on the podcast. But yeah, so we have her spitting all of this out, and I like how, was it either Mike or Lucas that says, this sounds a little Mission Impossible-y. I don't know about this, because Mike is saying, well, we need to use an inside man. Not a super spy though.
Yeah.
Someone no one would suspect. And I love this moment because then that's when they all turn around and look to none other but Derek on the couch eating Doritos. And it's yeah, let's use this kid. Because the military, they want him. He is supposed to be in that group that they were rounding.
Well, and thankfully for them, Derek has now seen a demogorgon.
Yes.
And now he's actually buying into their side of the story. Yeah. At the beginning of this episode, he's like, screw you guys. I know what's best. And now it's oh, these guys actually do know what's best.
Yeah.
So he quickly unites with this group, which is good because if he didn't, this whole thing would be for naught because Derek is literally the only person they can put in there. They were the military wanted to gather all the kids. They didn't gather Derek. They've got Derek. Mm-hmm. So, which by the way, where are his parents? Oh wait, they're never mind.
Oh.
They've got him kidnapped.
Yeah, there's they're still, I guess still
they're
sedated because
still sedated.
Somehow Derek woke up and the rest of them are all still knocked out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
We'll have to just roll with that.
you know what? I'm going to let his parents off the hook on this one.
Yeah.
Being that they're
Hopefully they didn't
sedated and in the barn still, despite all of this. I guess they're just there for the rest of the season.
So the sister got the injection in the neck, so I definitely understand why hers would be stronger, and maybe because the parents were drinking. I don't know. They don't get into.
We don't have to get into
here,
the science of it all. It's fine.
Either way, they're still out, and
they will be.
We see. Yes, they will be. We see delightful Derek, or dipshit Derek, whichever we're going to go with here, approaching the military base with his G.I. Joe lunchbox, telling the soldiers that my school has gone missing.
Yeah.
So,
great line.
Yeah. And so, I don't know where else to go. I guess she just showed up there. So this is where, Eric, they're just shoving Derek along. They're pushing him. I'm
definitely walking him
up.
They're walking him to the barracks or whatever, very much like a prisoner. You know, like they're jabbing him in the back, not once, not like multiple times. And I thought, if you're trying to hide the fact that you're looking out for these kids and their best interest, maybe don't shove them along the whole way. Like, it was not a good look from the military at that point. But again, it is giving us, the viewer, one more opportunity to say military is bad.
Yes,
we don't trust these people.
Right. Well, luckily they did not search his lunchbox, because that's where we learn shortly that he is keeping the walkie-talkie. But before that point, we also see Murray giving the other Hawkins crew their supplies. And Murray is also showing them a hidden compartment in the panel truck. So they are, it's like padded, where he's going to put the children, which in any other context probably would have sounded really bad. But here we are. This is where they're going to keep the kids safe. So this is where then Derek's walkie-talkie back in the bathroom, he is busting that out of the lunchbox and saying, dipshit Derek here. And, Joyce is like, listen, you're delightful, Derek. And she's trying to, I think, give him a moment here. It's kind of random. But they're talking back and forth, and he then puts the out of order sign on the stall. And I love the moment where we have Derek telling the other children in the bunk that the day of reckoning has arrived.
Yeah.
And he will lead them to safety. They think he's mental, but Debbie is overhearing this and her ears are perking up. And this is what he knew would happen. It's like, this is going to sound crazy to the kids that have no idea what I'm talking about, but maybe this will, be of interest to someone who has experienced knowing Henry or been told about these monsters.
Yep.
Right?
Anybody who is connected with Henry is going to know what Derek is talking about.
Mm-hmm. So we also see Will telling Mike that he could feel what the Demogorgon was feeling. So back at the barn, they're having this conversation about his experience earlier where he was seeing through his eyes. Well, not only is he seeing what the Demogorgon is seeing, but he's actually feeling everything that's going on with this Demogorgon as well. And Mike is kind of like, listen, and I had the same thought as Mike in this scene. He's like, are you sure you're not actually controlling the Demogorgon? Because sure, Joyce was swinging the axe back and forth, but you also saw the Demogorgon just backing off, and that is not what we saw the Demogorgon doing like in the house with with Karen as she was like jabbing at it with the wine bottle. It didn't back up at all. Well, it just kept going at her.
It's not what we saw when Hop had the sword in the prison. It's not what we saw when Steve had the baseball bat in season 1. We have not seen demogorgons just back
down.
So why is this one backing up? And Mike is raising an interesting question. Like, are you sure, since you were in it and you could see it, that you didn't have any sort of part in that? And there's just no good answer.
Yeah, and he's saying, it's like you're a wizard. Oh, wait a second. Actually, it's more like you're a sorcerer because your powers are innate. And I love that little comment here, which, hey, listen, I'm not going to lie. I didn't know before this what the difference between a wizard and a sorcerer were. But I like that I do now. I feel like my nerd level, I just got a few points there.
This is definitely like a nod to the D&D players, or not even Dungeons & Dragons, but just anybody who's played those fantasy games that understands what a wizard's capabilities are or a sorcerer's capabilities are. They are very different. And seeing that referenced here is kind of a cool little touch for a show like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, we know they've hatched this plan to be going down into the tunnels and working their way closer to this bathroom. So we see Robin and Will then in the tunnels with Lucas, and Robin and Will are having this conversation while Lucas and Mike are further ahead.
We did skip over, like, at the end of that sorcerer conversation, Will did kind of like playfully push at Mike, and then Mike just kind of walked off, and Robin saw this and saw Will's reaction to it and was like, got it. Okay. And she can see it, but Mike can't see it. And this is when Robin decides, hey, I'm going to have a little one-on-one here. And so they talk about Tammy Thompson. Was like,
So then she's telling her about her crush on Tammy Thompson until that annoying Steve Harrington came along, the hair Harrington or whatever. And and he came along, swept her off her feet, and, she was looking, basically, this whole story is about her. She was looking for answers in someone else, but she had it within herself the whole time. And she had to stop being so scared of who she really was. And once she was unafraid of her true feelings, she could finally be free. And she could finally blossom and really fly. And Will is saying, you could finally be Rockin' Robin, right? So it's like, he's agreeing. He is really hearing her.
Yes, he is.
And that's what I really appreciate Will's character very much in this way, where he's very much an empath, which I kind of also feel like it lends himself to this character and feeling what the Demogorgon is feeling as well.
Yes.
But he's really hearing what Robin is putting down here in the same way that he was really hearing what Jonathan was telling him before about just I will love you no matter what, and really believing him in that moment and hearing what he was trying to say without him just outright saying it too. So I feel like Will's character is really cool in this way. And also sharing that with Mike, I feel like he has this great communication style where he was then telling Mike, you're the heart of this group, and able to effectively communicate that to him as well in the way that Mike took him to heart.
And it's also noteworthy that Robin mentioned that she was able to do this by stumbling upon some old home movies of hers where they showed her being very carefree, because that will play a part here later in this episode.
Yes, great point. Yeah, she could physically see herself in those moments and realize, wow, look how free I was then. I need to get back to that. It's been in me the whole time. And meanwhile, Mike and Lucas are up ahead, and Mike is like, hello guys, anytime now. This is we're kind of doing something here because they're in a tunnel. They're on a mission. So great with the chit chat, but let's keep it moving. And Yeah, they found the bathroom. I mean, Eric, this is all we just have to believe it. We just have to roll with the fact that Joyce rolled out these maps. They were able to strategically get to where they needed to go.
Okay,
and
so
they got there.
This is all part of what I had an issue with for the very first episode. I think these 4 episodes as a chunk are great. The first episode just has you believe, oh, it's been like a year and a half. And as such, here's all this information that you have to now know and believe. And which is why it was one of my least favorite Stranger Things episodes. But as part of that, we are understanding that they have detailed maps of the tunnels. They have detailed maps of the overlay of what the upside down looks like underneath Hawkins in all these areas. And so I'm not shocked that they have this like overlay tunnel map. It is though like very quick that they do all these things. And that's why I really disliked the first episode. I feel like they could have shown us them figuring that could have been a whole extra season. But it's
a
okay.
Lot. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief too here that it's like, okay, these guys who are really into strategy games maybe also have really strong cartography, mapping skills. And
let's listen. Will made all the tunnels.
He did.
So this is That's not true. Like out of the blue that he could line up exactly where they go.
Meanwhile, we're back in the bunk with Derek doing a meditation exercise with the group of kids. And he's all like, it's called visualization to the teacher. Mom does it when she's out of Valium.
So funny.
Love that line.
So good.
And, he gets a signal to his walkie-talkie, though, because they've carved out this little hole in the lunchbox so he can see when the light is flashing. And this is his signal to tell Debbie, go, go, go to the bathroom. She's going in there, and then she's seeing busting through the ground in the stall that he marked out of order. Well, we see Lucas just appearing through the floor.
By the way, don't send that signal till you've got the hole. Like, if I'm Debbie, I'm not sitting there waiting for the hole to be crafted. I don't even know what's going on here.
Yes.
I'm surprised she didn't run out screaming her head off.
I agreed. Right. It could have been anything coming through the floor. It could have been the monsters. That's what I would have thought. So, yeah, well, he's appearing, and Derek is sending the kids in one by one to the bathroom, and they are all climbing down this ladder, which I'm also like, where did this ladder come from? It's there. And I don't remember them carrying a ladder through the tunnels, but we have a ladder there. They're climbing down it. Robin is telling Debbie that she's a magic elf who works with Mr. Whatsit. So, okay, we have that too. And Mike is noticing, though, as he's popping his head up, that there is water that is going crazy, busting through the pipes in the bathroom, and it is flooding it out. Because earlier in this moment, when Lucas was kind of like trying to make his way through the floor, there was this moment where one of the little girls in the bathroom, there was like a loud rumbling, because I am assuming that means they hit some type of water main, and this is causing the water to go haywire in the bathroom.
Not only did they hit a pipe as they went through, but then one of the other kids, as they were coming down, twisted one of the pipes as they grabbed it as a handrail. So a combination of things here has really opened the water up in the bathroom in a negative way as you're trying to slowly get people out.
Right. Well, we have Will and Mike tried to fix this water leak unsuccessfully in the bathroom. Water is still just going nuts, and it is starting to leak under the door, and we have this tattletale girl who tells the guard what's happening. So the rest of the kids are making a run for it to the bathroom. They're trying to get as many kids down this ladder as possible. While then they are then trying to keep the door shut from the guards busting through. But the water's gone everywhere.
Let's not forget that as they're shutting the bathroom door, this is Derek slamming the door closed. He yells, Ashley Klein is a snitch.
Yes. Damn you, Ashley Klein.
And I think I got that name right. He only yelled it very quickly. But aside from that, I find this scene to be one of the more unbelievable scenes in the entire series. If you're going to tell me that on one side of the door, you get 3 military men, and on the other side of the door, you got Will, Mike, and Derek standing in a puddle trying to hold the door, and they can just hold it closed? They just hold this thing off? Get out of here. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
Like, these guys, the military men are busting this door down real fast. Like, listen, Mike, Will, love you guys, but no, this isn't happening.
So I just had this moment, Eric, because I'm looking her up right when you said Ashley Klein. Is Larry Klein her dad?
Oh, maybe.
Larry Klein.
It's very plausible.
Like,
the mayor?
Right?
The mayor?
Like, yes!
It's possible.
The mayor who had the fair?
Would make sense. Would make sense that the Klein family's always causing problems.
Right? Like, what are the odds that... Yeah, I feel like that would be way too much of a coincidence if they used the same last name. Well...
Let's say it is. I like that idea.
I like that idea too. Well, they are trying to keep this door closed, but Joyce is also spotted once they bust in, because obviously they do, as Eric said. Once they bust in the bathroom, they're looking down the hole, and yeah, Joyce is spotted by the soldiers as one of the girls is coming down the ladder. At that point, we have Mike, Will, and Derek still at the top in the bathroom as well. So we then flash to a scene, though, where we see Murray loading the escaped kids into the secret door in that truck. So we're kind of flashing back and forth between different shots in this portion, where we see Joyce telling the soldiers that the kids are in danger, and Derek is telling them, no offense, but you and your men, well, you can't protect shit. And Will is also at the same moment dropping down onto the ground, because they're all just outside at this point in this parking lot, and Will is dropping down to the ground and having another vision of the Demogorgon. And he looks to Joyce and he's saying, they're here. And that's when you just see we are flashing to all different scenes, but all the lights in every shot, all the lights are going crazy around the base. And that's when you realize, well, the ground, it's actually not cement right here. It's like these panels, these steel panels that go underground.
That was part of season 1. I'm sorry, not season 1. Episode 1. They showed like kids sledding on the metal panels, and you shouldn't do that. Right. This is all part of Robin's like layout. As essentially in order to seal the great earthquake. The military has essentially just come along and stapled it closed with all these metal panels, essentially. They're coming right back through it.
Yeah, the ground is popping up and you just see red glow from underneath these panels, and demogorgons are just flying up into the air and slashing soldiers to pieces all over the place. This is where you just see the soldiers spraying these demogorgons with bullets, and they are not affected.
Do not care
whatsoever.
Not even a little.
Do not care.
Nope.
No, and
let me just say, first of all, this is just an incredibly epic fight scene. There's not a whole lot of ways for us to detail all the fine details of this fight, but let's put it like this. I was immediately transported back to season 4, right? Yes. Where Mike and Will and Jonathan have got to get out of the buyer's house. And they shoot it all with one camera lens, where like it's moving and you're following the crowd through the fight, right? Like you are an active member of this fight, and you are being moved around, and they keep that like one lens to make it feel like you are moving your head up, down, whatever. Now, obviously,
cool.
there's a lot of CGI thrown in here with demogorgons and all sorts of other stuff, but the idea that it's all done like from one look is great, because then you also get like the idea that you are rocking with Mike through this whole thing and trying to escape.
Yes, and because the Demogorgon, they're just flinging everyone around like toys, all these soldiers. And Erica is also reporting back to Robin and Murray that they are under attack. And just then, the ground you see everywhere is opening up with gates.
Yep.
So there are just red portals all over the place. Lucas, who is still underground, is also seeing these portals open up, and there are just demogorgons everywhere. And we see them continuing to kill the soldiers. Mike is trying to get the group to safety. They're hiding kind of behind this wall at one point as he's saying, let's get to the radio shack, because he knows there's a way down to the tunnels there as well. So he is trying to lead the kids away. And he is being super brave in this moment. I gotta say, he is just like,
listen, he's the heart.
Kids under his wing.
He's the heart. He's got the whole crowd of kids, and largely throughout the back half of this fight, you are not one of the kids, but you are clearly tracking Mike. You are with him, hiding behind things, peeking out, looking around corners, and then like making your way across as this Humvee's coming through. I really love how they did this. I could watch this a million times.
It was really well done.
It's almost impossible to catch everything, because unlike watching it in like where it's like a stable camera, like shooting, looking, you are actively in this fight, and it is it's a lot of fun. Really amps up the tension level.
Oh, yeah. And then he's just face to face with one of the Demogorgons, and they are surrounded. And then this guy with a flamethrower shows up, and he is then spraying this Demogorgon. Thank God, because that is the one thing that we know surely will take it down. But as he's hitting this Demogorgon with the flames, Will is down screaming, because as we've learned, he's saying he's also feeling what they're feeling as well.
Well, he's connected to the hive, but all the other Demogorgons all throughout also are falling apart, like the ones in the tunnel chasing Lucas, the ones making their way towards Murray and Robin. They're all falling down as well.
Yes, and Mike is also looking over as this is happening through that massive gate in the wall. He's seeing like a man's figure.
Shadowy figure.
Like, what is this? Well, you know, the figure that Mike is watching, well, we see it bust through the gate, and oh my God, it's Vecna.
Well, so and let's not forget, we're going through this like, you know, chunked out storylines. This is playing over as Hopper and Eleven are going through the door, finding Kali on the other side, realizing, wait, Vecna's not here. And that's when we're learning, well, that's because he's here.
Yeah. And they are all shooting at him like crazy, and he's just like, ping, ping, like just knocking the bullets down. No big deal. And just destroying the soldiers. He is unaffected by the fire. That's not doing anything to Vecna.
Because he stops
nice
it.
Try.
He just holds it back.
Yeah, that's it. And he's raising his arms up, which brings the Demogorgons all back to life, and he is just re-energizing them, and we're seeing Murray in the truck again, because they are now all over this truck, and he is trying to fling them off the truck by swerving like a madman, and they do start to fall off, but there's one still on the roof, and he can hear it up there, and so he takes this really wide turn. Unfortunately, it just knocks this truck on its side, and they crash.
Yeah, box trucks are not known for like their, maneuverability.
Stability. No, not at all. And we also see Lucas is surrounded by the demogorgons again in the tunnels, and Vecna has just effectively killed all of the soldiers. And, he is just tossing trucks around kind of for the fun of it seems, but also to reveal who is behind one of the Hummers, and it's Will. Because Joyce is hovering over him, and I love that she just gets up and she's like, "Stay away from my boy!" and is like screaming at Vecna, and he just flings her aside. He just
chucks her against the wall and get out of here.
Yeah.
I will say also, I don't know. So I heard the Duffer Brothers had said that season 5 will also contain the most gruesome death. Now, I don't know that they ever identified what they thought the most gruesome death was. But there was a moment here right before Joyce gets flung against the wall where we see the soldier who had asked to go out and search for the fallen soldier is like crawling on the ground. And then you just see like Vecna like throw like spikes through both eyes and mouth, and it just like explodes his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's gotta be it, right? Like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's technically the most gruesome death in Stranger Things, but it sure felt like it to me.
That could be it. There's also one coming up.
There is another one.
Final episode. Yeah, that I'm thinking of that stuck out to me. So yeah, but that was pretty bad. Yeah. Well, he, after he flings her aside, he's approaching Will, and he is raising him up off the ground and pulling him toward him. And he's saying to him, "Can you see them, William?" And the Demogorgon, meanwhile, we see is busting into the truck. And we also see it's knocking out Lucas. So he's, just showing him, making sure that he can see what he's seeing. The Demogorgon dragging those kids away outside of the truck. And Vecna saying that he chose Will and he's choosing the other children because you guys are all weak. You're easily broken and controlled, and you make perfect vessels. And, Will, you were the first one that I broke, and you broke so easily. And this is why, he's saying, you showed me what I can achieve here. And then he drops Will down and just starts to walk out through the gate. And that's when Will is back in the Demogorgon's mind, just as it approaches Robin and Lucas and Mike. So it's like you see all of these different shots where the Demogorgons are about to tear up all of his friends. And that's when we have the moment where we just see Will looking back up. And a memory. He's now going back through his memories as he's looking up, just as Robin had described, which, Eric, I think you had referenced for this reason. It's like she had talked about what... Yeah.
Right in this moment, you get Robin's voice out of nowhere saying, "I had all the answers the whole time." And it shows this flashback of Mike and Will on a swing where Mike says something like, cute. "Hey, do you want to be friends?" Which is a direct reference back to an earlier episode when they said, "This is what happened." Like I'm so glad that I sat down on the swing next to you and just asked if you wanted to be friends, and we've been best friends forever. Like that, we now actually get to see that moment and see
it was cool.
Mike and Will and Jonathan and Joyce all throughout the years as they kind of grow up, only for him to realize that he does have all this freedom for the ability to do what he needs to do in this exact moment.
Yeah, building Castle Byers, like all of these wonderful moments, his favorite memories this is what he's clinging to here. Not unlike when 11 talks about her powers and how she's the most powerful when she's channeling the good stuff, right? Like we learned that earlier in the season that it's not when she was harnessing the bad memories. It's when she was clinging to the positive memories that she realized she could do way more than she even knew, and could regain her powers. So we see Will also looking back at these memories, and he is now freezing these Demogorgons right on the spot. They're in the air. We see then, not unlike what Vecna can do, where he's snapping the limbs of the demogorgons in Vecna fashion. But you know what? It's all right here. I'm okay with it with these demogorgons. They've been wiping all of humanity out. So yeah, he's snapping their limbs and taking them down. And I don't know, to me, this might be my favorite moment of the entire series. Like, I love this so much.
Super high up on the list. And
it's awesome.
I love that they come back from this like flashback memory and you just see this demogorgon frozen in the sky, still not really knowing what is going on
What's
here.
happening?
And you're looking at Mike as he is staring at this demogorgon, trying to figure out himself what is going on. And then as Mike shifts his focus, he just sees Will standing in the back, hand outstretched like 11, eyes rolled back, just the whites in his eyes, holding this demogorgon. And then he's like, boom, grabs another, boom, grabs another, raises them all up, snaps all their limbs. And as they all fall to the ground dead, you see him just wipe the blood from his nose. Oh. And it's like, oh man, what are we doing?
It's so good. And it was just, I think, so satisfying to see Will, who has really been, even though he was like the main character of this entire story, he's also been in the background, and he's never been the fighter. He's never been out of his shell. He's never been able to harness these powers and to know that now it has been within him this whole time, and he's able to use them and save his friends and really be the hero. Oh my God. I just love that so much for him, and I'm so glad that they did this with his character, because I know, Eric, we've kind of called him like the damsel in distress.
Yeah, he has
times.
been.
It's like, all right, Will, like, but yeah, now you are the hero, like the guy, and I love this for Will.
So there's two things I want to bring up here before we jump into our ending segment here. First of all, have you seen the table read where they did this? Where they actually
I think I did.
Where the whole cast is just sitting around the table reading the script for the first time.
Oh, and like finding out. Yes.
None of them know that this is the case except for Will. And he's just like smiling, and everyone is like cheering around the table like, oh my God, this is great. It is great. Everybody feels it. Everybody who loves the show feels it. The whole cast felt it. Like, this is such an awesome moment. And for them to stop here and be like, by the way, come back in a month, like, unbelievable. You couldn't have done it better. All that did was just open the floodgates for what is about to happen. And it left everybody on the highest highs for how they felt about Stranger Things. The other thing that I want to point out, and I think you alluded to it a little bit here, I have felt, and I think at this point too, this is when I said to myself, you know, if you really want to look objectively at this show, it is not 11 versus Henry, right? It's not Jane versus Henry. There is a lot of that, and they have built in story for why Jane should hate Henry, and we obviously have seen that in detail. But when it comes down to it, this is Will versus Henry. Mm-hmm. Will is the one that was captured at the beginning. Will has been the one that has always been a prisoner of his from the get. And so the storyline has to close with Will versus Henry. Like, Will has got to break out. It can't just be 11 defeats Vecna. Like, Will has got to free himself from Vecna. And so when I'm left with this point after episode 4, I was like, yes, okay. Now we can get Will out of Vecna's grasp. Like, he can do this now. He's got some abilities as well, because guess what? He's attached to the hive mind, which means he's got some of that power that Vecna's got. We can do this now. Great. Yeah. Love it so much.
Which I think, as we learned, 11's character, which we didn't know in the beginning, she's the reason why Vecna is here at all.
Correct.
Right? So it's like, so she is now someone that they've used as their weapon to continue to fend him off.
Yeah.
But really now having Will be the hero, because really it's like humanity versus these monsters, right? And so it's like, what are the and not to say 11 isn't a human, but she's not in the conventional sense, right?
Well,
so
no, she is a human. She's just got these she's been trained to use her brain differently.
Yeah, so I guess more like, the innocence versus the monster, right? So it's almost like, because Will was his true prisoner, where really Vecna was 11's prisoner. So it's kind of
11 is fighting Vecna because she feels as though she created this and unleashed this on the world, which she did. Will is fighting Vecna because he's been a prisoner of his the whole time. And he's trying to fight for his personal freedom. And I think while we have seen the depths of the 11 versus Vecna story, and obviously that is a important piece, the Will versus Vecna story, I think, is arguably a more compelling piece, especially at the end.
Yeah.
Because he's just been that prisoner the whole time.
Yeah. And he has miscalculated this entire time the power that people have over their minds, like over these thoughts, and it's kind of pushing out these nightmares and using these positive thoughts instead of his. Like, he's just banked on the fact that, well, people will just cling to their nightmares. I'll be able to manipulate them however I want. Well, really, maybe, while infecting them with his powers, he did not count on the fact that maybe he can use these powers in a different way that I chose not to.
And you can make the argument that Will might never have figured that out if it wasn't for Robin.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And 11 might not have figured that out either if it wasn't for really her experience with with the kids. I think like her having the experience with her new group allowed her to latch on to all of those newfound positive memories that she wouldn't have had without them. So it's like it all came full circle, Yeah. Great episode.
Great episode. Well, now we're going to jump into our IMDb segment of this podcast, where we talk about our ratings versus your ratings as we find them on IMDb. Plus, we're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite characters of this episode. Listen, this is a peak episode of Stranger Things. I don't think there's any question about it in my mind. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want to rate it. But as far as favorite characters, do you have a favorite here? I know we both said coming into this podcast off the air, we had like a list of people that were the favorite characters.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There could have been a few, but for me, I just have to go with Will, because that moment at the end of him taking down the demogorgons and really getting into his full power, recognizing who he is, just love it so much. I don't know what it is about stuff where it's like you realize the hero, he's the underdog, figures out who he really is, comes into himself. It just just makes me cry, makes me emotional, and totally got there. Even just talking about it during this recap, I'm like, oh my God, it's getting to me. It's a lot. So I love Will here. Got to go with Will.
We'll make this real easy. I had both Mike and Robin also listed for reasons of helping credit Will for getting to where he is. Mike literally putting the seed of maybe you did control that Demogorgon without knowing it in his mind. Robin explaining how the power was with him all the time. Both of them get big credit. I liked all of the scenes with all of them, in all honesty. Though, when it comes down to it, it is Will. Will is my favorite character in this episode. It is one of the peak moments in the franchise, in the series. It is amazing. And yeah, I'm giving that to Will again, which, by the way, he has now gotten back-to-back favorite characters from us. And I don't think he has a lot of favorite characters throughout the entire series, but he is coming in strong at the end.
Yeah. I always gave Will a hard time, I feel like. And
it was just hard to pick him.
Come on, dude. That's why I just love this so much. But gave the other brother my least favorite, Jonathan. I just wasn't feeling him in this episode. Felt like, he's just resisting the plan, doubting Steve, even though it was his idea to go through the wall and it worked. And they got to where they wanted to go. So it's like, I don't know. I just felt like, Jonathan, you gotta come around, buddy. You gotta do better here.
Jonathan just feels like he is rejecting Steve's ideas because he still doesn't like Steve. And it's like, bro, it's season 5.
Yeah.
It's season 5. Yeah. What are we doing here? Like, are we still... That is something you could have got away with in season 1 and 2. We are past that. Get over it. That being said, I still didn't pick Jonathan. I gave Jonathan a pass only because he didn't have a lot of screen time. So
that's true.
I did go with Hopper as my least favorite in this. And I will say Hopper had a lot of good moments. I feel like he outsmarted the military by hanging out behind him while they all went for the scientist who was in the closet. He also fought through and he fought through the vine plant and was able to get and save badass. 11 from Dr. K.
Yeah.
I will say though, I really get bothered by Hopper when it comes to the, hey, sit on the sidelines, I've got this. And he does this every now and then. And so when he's telling Jonathan and Steve and Nancy, hey, don't worry, we'll come get you when it's safe. And he's also telling 11, hey, here's a compass. I'm going to go fight the bad guy. Yeah, I've got this bomb strapped to my chest. Don't worry, I won't use it. I don't think people strap bombs to their chest if they're not intending to use it. Like this.
Nope.
And I understand from a character development standpoint, I think there was a lot of ways that they wrote Hopper to like have it come to an end right here, where you got the thank yous from 11. You got him telling her how proud he was of her accomplishments. You had Dr. K telling him, so you're the reason that she's been so hard to track, like giving him that, hey, you are the reason. It's not her, it's you. You're the reason why it's been so hard to find her. All of these things are coming to a head. And then he's having those flashbacks at the very end of Sarah, where he's realizing, like, if I go in here and I have to use this bomb, like, maybe that will be something that I'll be able to do. I'll be able to meet up with her. Just one more reminder for the audience that she's out there for him potentially in an afterlife. It's just still like there was a lot of positives here. I just did not like the way that he went about some of these things. And so while I think the Hopper story could have, like, if he had gone in the door and the bomb had gone off and that had been that, like, I think I might feel differently about it, but he didn't. And so it still feels like, well, what's all this for? Like, what are we doing all this for? And why are you still keeping everybody on the sidelines? This is obviously a team effort. You are not just the hero alone. So it's Hopper. That's my, that I was going to say that's my 2 cents, but that's probably 50 cents on Hopper right there.
Hey, I get it. I actually almost went with 11 for
I thought about her too.
That scene. I'm like, 11 was not great in this episode, and we didn't get a whole lot. But Jonathan, I get it. Him instead. But Eric, what about your rating for this episode?
Okay, so I want to be clear about my ratings in the past. This is going to be high. Okay, there is no sugarcoating this. This is going to be one of my highest episodes. And I realize I think I might have put myself into a scenario here where I have the Massacre at Hawkins Lab as a 10.0 and I have the piggyback as a 9.9. So for reference, that is the one where we learn that Henry is Vecna, is the 10, and then the piggyback being the one where they fight off Vecna at the end of season 4, and we have Eddie fighting Eddie with the bats and the guitar. We have Max and Lucas in the attic, and that is my 9.9. I think I wrote down here this is at least a 9.8. And I feel like I want to give this a 10, but I think some of those other episodes had better other moments, and I don't want to just say this is a 10 because Will becomes the sorcerer. So I'm going to give this a 9.8 and make it my third favorite episode of the series and not feel that bad about it.
That's the exact score I gave this one too.
A 9.8?
9.8. And now I wasn't even looking at my other scores, but that actually makes sense because that's the same score I gave the Massacre at Hawkins Lab, and I gave the piggyback a 10, and I feel like this is like just under that. So yeah, 9.8. That makes sense. I mean, this is just such a great episode, but yeah, maybe not like maybe just literally a hair below the others because or below the piggyback, but to me it makes sense to line it right up with the Massacre at Hawkins Lab. So yeah,
the crowd, the IMDb crowd has given this a 9.3. Yes.
Okay.
So
all right.
a 9.3 from the crowd is great. And a 9.3 is a 4-way tie for third with previous Stranger Things episodes. In fact, it is tied with the season 1, season 2, and season 3 finales.
Interesting.
The only episodes that the IMDb raters have higher than this are The Massacre at Hawkins Lab, which is their number 1. That is a 9.6. And Dear Billy, which was also very good.
Such a good episode.
And that was a 9.5 from them. We both gave that one a 9.3. So we're both above the crowd. I'm not even worried about it. It is easily one of my top 3 episodes, and it's one of the top 3 episodes by the crowd as well. So I'm here for that.
I stand by this rating.
This
very good.
This is one of my favorite episodes. I do think, though, as we turn the corner to the next 3 that were released on Christmas Day, the ratings could get a little wild. I haven't looked at them.
Yeah.
I never look.
Yep.
But I just know that there's some disgruntled people out there over the next 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to see what my thoughts are on the rewatch.
Agreed.
Because I think it'll be a bit different than how I felt the first time. So,
I feel the same way. I think that it is it is going to be a different vibe on a rewatch than it was the first time. And so I'm interested to see how I feel about it. Well, thank you so much for listening to the We Run on Reruns podcast. Please follow us on our Instagram and our YouTube. Like, subscribe, share those videos, all the short form content we've got out there. We've actually got the full episodes on YouTube as well, if you want to sit through it on YouTube instead of one of these other platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, where we would really appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. Again, you can find our full episodes on werunonreruns.com, our own website as well. For Amanda, this is Eric. Enjoy watching Season 5, Episode 5, Chapter 5, Shock Jock for next week. Happy rerunning, everybody.
See you later, guys.